Welcome to Universe of Love in Anime, where love stories are told with all your heart. Before we begin our emotional journey today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who needs a story that is healing, hopeful, and humane. Each of your support not only motivates us, but also spreads love to more people. Thank you for choosing to stop by Universe of Love in Anime, and now, let's listen to this heart-touching story. Growing Heart. In my previous life, I went to the hospital for a routine prenatal checkup, only to be blindsided by something that shattered my world. There, in the waiting room, sat my husband's childhood friend, pretending to be me, flaunting my name as if it belonged to her. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. Instead, she lashed out with venom, accusing me of infidelity, claiming the baby growing inside me wasn't even my husband's. And he believed her. Blinded by jealousy, he didn't just turn his back on me, he locked me away in a room filled with unstable women who whispered and laughed and grabbed at me like I was one of them. No one listened when I cried out. No one cared when I begged him to take me to the hospital as the bleeding started. He never moved. It was his younger brother who finally found me, but by the time he rushed me to the hospital, it was already too late. I had lost everything. My baby. My dignity, my will. And then, as if the universe took pity on me, I opened my eyes again to a time before all of it. Before the wedding. Before the lies. Before I gave my heart to the wrong man. This time, I didn't hesitate. I picked up the phone and called my father. Dad, someone's using my name to humiliate me in public. Handle it. And one more thing, I accept the engagement to the Oliver family, but I want to be engaged to the younger brother. I'm done playing the fool. I thought I was ready, but nothing could have prepared me for reliving that moment. A brutal blow to the head snapped me back to reality, my eyes opening wide to a blinding red haze. Blood trickled down my forehead, stinging my eyes. Celine's voice shrieked above me, sharp and cruel. Did you think running your mouth would save you? Today, you'll learn what it means to challenge me. I wiped at the blood, my hands trembling as I struggled to stand. Emma, smug and malicious, stood beside her, holding a wine bottle, poised to strike. I raised my arms instinctively, but instead of hitting me, she smashed it against her own arm and let out a dramatic scream just as Oliver walked in. Like clockwork, he rushed to her, shielding her like a knight guarding his princess. Are you insane, Celine? He barked. You're jealous of Emma, so you humiliate her? You were never meant to live like the wealthy. Accept that. Then came the words that pierced deeper than any wound. As long as I'm here, no one will hurt Emma. I looked up at him, and it met his was the exact moment I had been reborn into. Back before the secret marriage. Before the baby. I hadn't even made those mistakes yet, and still, it was happening all over again. Oh, it hurts, Emma whimpered as she cradled her arm delicately. Oliver inspected her like she was a fragile treasure, frowning with concern. When he saw there wasn't a scratch, he sighed. Thank God. If you got scarred, that was it. The nausea rose in me. How could I have ever loved him? How had I been so blind? I remembered thinking that a child would make him settle down, thinking love meant sacrifice. But he had chosen Emma over me every time. And now, once again, he stood here demanding I apologize. Celine, apologized to Emma, he ordered. The blood was still fresh on my face, but all he saw was her fake tears. Emma clung to his arm, eyes glistening. She hit herself on purpose, she sobbed. I followed her. She said if she bled, you'd feel sorry for her. Without a second thought, Oliver turned on me. You're disgusting, Celine. I didn't even flinch. I'd heard it all before. I pulled out my phone to call my father, but Oliver snatched it from my hands and threw it to the ground, smashing it into pieces. You've been spoiled too long. Apologize now. He yanked my arm violently, dragging me toward him. My body, still weak, collapsed under the weight of the trauma. I dropped to my knees, the world spinning. And then he pressed his knee into my back, forcing me down. Emma stood before me, triumphant. A twisted performance. If you want to stay by my side, Oliver sneered, beg her for forgiveness. I clenched my teeth so hard I tasted blood. I couldn't move. "Stop playing the victim," he snapped before slapping the back of my head. My vision exploded with light. I could barely breathe, my head pounding so fiercely that I could no longer tell what was pain and what was memory. I saw Emma's smile out of the corner of my eye, smug and satisfied. I'd had enough. "You're an idiot, Oliver," I hissed, barely able to lift my head. "Emma's been pretending this whole time. She's no rich girl. It's all fake." He scoffed. "Emma takes her mother's name. She was sick as a child, lived away. I saw her mother visit her. I know it's true." "Lies." "All of it. Emma's connection to my family was nothing but a coincidence. My mother had once passed by her house to catch a glimpse of her future son-in-law, but he never listened. He never saw beyond what he wanted to believe. She drove rented luxury cars, wore counterfeit designer bags, pretended to belong in a world that wasn't hers. And because my family disapproved of the engagement, I had no voice, no title, just a hidden relationship built on lies. The first time I met Oliver, he was radiant, the epitome of a young heir, and I fell for him instantly. But my parents had known better. They refused to let me waste my life on a shallow promise. Still, I couldn't stay away. And when Oliver's family lost everything, they came crawling back, desperate, clinging to that dusty childhood engagement like a lifeline. They thought they could use me. But not this time. I wasn't that naive girl anymore. Not in this life. The days that followed were both quiet and transformative. I moved back into my family's estate, away from the city lights that once tempted me into illusions of love and loyalty. My room, untouched since I left, still carried faint traces of my childhood pressed flowers and old books, faded photographs taped to the mirror, a closet filled with forgotten dreams. I stood in front of the mirror one morning, brushing my hair, and realized how much I had changed. My face was the same, yet my eyes no longer held that wide-eyed innocence. They held fire now, a quiet, unwavering flame. Meanwhile, Emma was facing a reality she had never prepared for. With her lies exposed, her web of connections evaporated overnight. Her supposed friends abandoned her, her landlord kicked her out, and every job interview ended with rejection. The scandal trailed her like a shadow. But what cut deepest was that no one, not even Oliver, came to her defense. She had built her castle on sand, and the tide had finally come in. Oliver, desperate to save face, tried reaching out to my father again. This time, he sent a long handwritten letter, filled with pitiful apologies and twisted justifications. He begged for a chance to explain, to undo the damage. My father never even opened it. He handed it to me with a raised brow and simply said, "Do with it what you will." I didn't need to read it. I burned it that night in the garden, watching the flames eat through the paper like time devours regret. Sam stood beside me as I dropped the last charred piece into the fountain. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had gone differently?" he asked. I turned to him slowly. "No," I said firmly. "Because if they had, I wouldn't have you." He smiled then, that soft, unassuming smile that warmed the coldest corners of my heart. As the seasons shifted from late spring to early summer, our engagement preparations took on a new life. But we didn't want opulence. We chose simplicity, sincerity, and something symbolic. The ceremony would take place in the garden of my family's estate, under the magnolia tree that bloomed every June, the same tree my parents had planted the year I was born. I spent hours there, thinking, writing, letting go. On the day of our wedding, the sun rose gently over the hills. Guests began arriving in modest waves, each person greeted personally by my parents. My mother wore a soft pink dress, and for the first time in a long time, she looked truly happy. Sam wore a light beige suit, no tie, sleeves rolled, his hair slightly tousled by the morning breeze. When I walked out in a simple white dress, embroidered by hand with magnolia petals, the garden fell into a reverent silence. There was no orchestra, no gold-plated chairs, no media. Just people who loved us and knew the truth. As I walked down the aisle with my father, I heard him whisper, "You were always stronger than all of us, Celine." Sam's vows were soft, honest, and short. "I promise to never speak over your voice, never darken your light, and never stop choosing you. Every day." Mine were longer. I needed them to be. In my past life, I thought love was sacrifice, that silence meant strength, and that pain was the price of belonging. But now I know love is also respect. Strength is standing up for yourself, and belonging begins with self-worth. I choose you, Sam, not because I need saving, but because you reminded me I could save myself. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. When we kissed, it wasn't fireworks, it was sunrise.
Warm. Steady.
Real. After the ceremony, as people mingled beneath lanterns strung between the trees, I stood beneath the magnolia and watched my guests laugh and dance. In the corner of the garden stood a stone bench with a small brass plaque. It read, "For the child who never got to grow up, but whose memory helped her mother rise." I had asked for it to be made in secret, and I sat beside it, placing a small bouquet on the seat. "I'll never forget you," I whispered. "And I'll live this life in a way that would make you proud." Sam joined me a few minutes later, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Thinking about the future?" he asked. I nodded. "And the past. But mostly the present. I never want to forget how it feels to choose peace over pain." He kissed the top of my head. "Then let's build a life around that." A few months later, we started a foundation under my name, one that would support women who, like me, were once silenced, beaten down, or made invisible. It grew fast. Word spread that I wasn't just another heiress with a tragic story, but someone who turned her scars into strength. I gave talks. I told my truth. And every time I stepped on stage, I saw a dozen faces like mine in the crowd, wide-eyed, weary, waiting. And I told them, "You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after." One day, while walking through the halls of the foundation, I received a letter. No name, no return address. Inside, a single sentence: "I'm sorry." The handwriting was messy, rushed. I didn't need to wonder who it was from. I folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer where I kept stories I no longer needed to read. I closed it, locked it, and walked away, hand in hand with Sam, into the life I had chosen. The life I had reclaimed. Emma froze, her hands still wrapped around Sam's neck, her breath hitching in panic as she looked at me. I was barely standing, my hospital gown stained with dried blood, my eyes dark with fury.
Let
him go. My voice, though hoarse, cut through the chaos like a blade. Emma's arms trembled, and finally, she let go, backing away as if burned. Sam collapsed to the floor, gasping, coughing violently, blood dripping from his lips. I rushed toward him, ignoring the pain in my limbs, the spinning in my head. "Sam." I dropped to my knees, pulling him into my arms, brushing his soaked hair from his face. He looked up at me, barely conscious, but he smiled a weak, broken smile. "You're safe," he whispered. "That's all that matters." "No," I choked out. "You matter too." Oliver watched us in silence, the smile on his face cracking, breaking into something ugly. "So it's true," he said bitterly. "You're choosing him over me. You'd rather throw yourself into the arms of that coward." "You call him a coward?" I shot back, my voice rising. "You're the one who drugged me, kidnapped me from a hospital, tried to kill your own brother out of jealousy. You're the coward, Oliver. You always were." He blinked, stunned. "You're the one who betrayed me, Celine. I loved you. I was your fiancé." "You never loved anyone but yourself," I hissed. "I was just a symbol to you. A trophy. And when Emma came along with her fake name and fake life, you threw me away like trash. Do you know what it feels like to beg the man you love to save your life and watch him turn away?" For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Even Emma looked away. But Oliver's eyes blazed again. "If I can't have you, neither can he." He lunged. I braced myself, shielding Sam with my body, but before he could reach us, a deafening voice rang out. Don't move. Half a dozen guards stormed into the stairwell, weapons drawn. Behind them, my father appeared, his face carved in stone, his eyes locked on Oliver. "Step away from my daughter," he commanded. Oliver hesitated, then laughed, a sound hollow and manic.
"So, this is it?"
"You're going to let them take me?" "You're already gone, Oliver," I said quietly. "This is just the part where you realize it." The guards moved in, seizing him and Emma both. Emma screamed, thrashing against their grip, shouting that she was innocent, that Oliver forced her, but no one listened. My father stepped past them and knelt beside me. "Celine," he said gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay?" I nodded, tears finally breaking free. "Sam needs a doctor." My father looked at the boy in my arms and nodded. "We'll take care of him." Within minutes, Sam was rushed into emergency care. I stood in the hallway, covered in blood, exhausted, yet still standing. My mother arrived not long after, wrapping a shawl around my shoulders, holding me without words. That night, as I sat in the hospital room waiting for news about Sam, I couldn't sleep. Memories surged like waves off Oliver's smirk, Emma's twisted games, the cold floor of that room I had once been locked in, the lifelessness of my unborn child. But over it all rose a stronger voice. My own. No more silence. No more fear. The next morning, the doctors said Sam would recover. His arm was fractured, his ribs bruised, and his airway swollen from the choking, but he would heal. I walked into his room as soon as they allowed me, sitting beside him and taking his hand in mine. He turned his head slowly, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips.
"Hey," he said.
"You're still here." "I'll always be here," I replied. "You didn't give up on me. I won't give up on you." He squeezed my hand softly. "Does this mean we're still engaged?" I laughed, tears springing to my eyes. "This time, it's not an arrangement. This time, it's a promise." The days passed quietly after that. The scandal of Oliver's arrest flooded the headlines, but my father made sure none of it touched me. Emma's web of lies was completely dismantled. It turned out she had stolen identities before, manipulating her way through wealthy circles for years. But this time, justice was swift. She faced charges for identity theft, assault, and conspiracy. Oliver was charged with attempted murder. Their trials were public, their fall from grace absolute. As for me, I chose to step into the light. For the first time in my life, I allowed the world to see Menet as the mysterious hidden daughter of a Nestor family, but as Celine, survivor, woman, and heir. I gave a press conference flanked by my parents and Sam, answering questions with calm resolve. "I was silent for too long," I said. "But silence only feeds cruelty. This time, I chose to speak. And I will never stop." The support that followed was overwhelming. Letters poured in. Messages of encouragement. Stories from women who had gone through the same. I wasn't just someone who'd survived. I had become a voice. A symbol. Sam and I moved into a small house by the lake. Not a mansion, not a castle, just a home. A place where peace lived in the sound of birds, in the smell of pine, in the warmth of each other's presence. One night, I sat beside Sam on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars blink to life. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't gone back?" I asked. "If we hadn't had a second chance?" He looked at me, his eyes soft. "I think we would have found each other anyway. Somehow." I smiled, resting my head on his shoulder. "Then I'm glad fate decided to hurry up." As the wind rustled the trees, I knew one thing for certain. I had walked through hell, been broken, betrayed, left for dead. But I had come out the other side stronger, fiercer, and loved. And that, above all, was my victory. "Take my advice," I said softly, brushing his hair back gently like he was the fragile boy I once knew. "You need to rest. You've done enough. You saved me. You don't have to keep sacrificing your body to prove you're worthy." But Sam's expression hardened, and for a moment, the pain in his eyes burned brighter than the pain in his ribs. "I'm not doing this to prove anything. I'm staying, Because I love you. Because if I leave now, I'll never forgive myself. I looked at him, stunned. He had never said those words before. Not in this life, not even in the last. I opened my mouth to respond, but my heart swelled too fast, and the words caught in my throat. The door creaked open, and my mother entered, her expression composed, but her eyes red from crying. She looked between us, then quietly said, "The car is ready, Celine. We can transfer him now, while no one's watching." Sam tried to sit up. "I told her I'm not leaving," he said hoarsely. My mother looked at me for confirmation, but I only nodded. "He's right. He stays. But we'll move him to the private floor. Only our family and the head doctor will know." My mother's lips tightened, but she didn't argue. She simply turned around and gave the orders. By that night, Sam was moved to a quiet, secured room at the far end of the top floor. 2 guards were stationed at the entrance. No one got in without our approval. I slept on the couch beside his bed. He was restless, often waking from nightmares. One night, I woke to the sound of his quiet sobs. He was turned away from me, curled slightly in pain, but I heard him whisper, "Why wasn't I stronger? Why wasn't I enough to stop him sooner?" I stood up and sat beside him, taking his hand. "You were enough," I whispered. "You were the only one who ever saw me when I was invisible. Don't ever say you weren't enough." He clung to my hand until the tremors stopped. Meanwhile, my father worked relentlessly. Oliver's assets were frozen. Every business partnership was reviewed, every contract examined. He had nowhere to run. Emma, abandoned by the last of her allies, was now alone in a small rented apartment, hiding from reporters and begging for money from friends who no longer answer her calls. One afternoon, I received a message. A video. From an anonymous number. It showed Oliver, drunk, screaming my name in the middle of a dark alley. He shouted that I belonged to him, that he would find me no matter where I hid, that he would kill Sam if he had to. I sent the video to my father. Within hours, a restraining order was in place, and a formal case for attempted murder was filed. We had enough evidence to bury him this time. Still, I didn't feel safe. Not really. That night, I sat by Sam's bed, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. I thought about everything I'd endured me past life, the betrayal, the loss. And then I thought of this life, of the way Sam's arms had wrapped around me in the stairwell, of his voice when he said he loved me, of his broken body trying to shield mine. I wasn't just living for myself anymore. I was living for both of us. A week passed. Sam's recovery was slow but steady. The doctors were amazed by his resilience. We started walking together in the garden behind the hospital, first a few steps, then farther each day. I held his arm, and he leaned on me without shame. The press kept hounding for a statement, but I refused to appear until Sam could stand beside me. And finally, one morning, he did. In a cream-colored shirt and black pants, his arms still in a soft brace, he stood tall beside me at the podium. Cameras flashed. Reporters held their breath. I stepped up to the microphone. "My name is Celine Nestor," I began. "I am the only daughter of the Nestor family. I was the victim of identity fraud, emotional abuse, and attempted murder. The man who claimed to love me was the same man who nearly destroyed me. But I stand here today not as a victim but as a survivor. And beside me is the man who risked everything to protect me." Sam gently took my hand, and I felt his strength, his warmth. "Justice," I continued, "is not just about punishment. It's about truth. It's about reclaiming our names, our voices, and our futures. And today I take back all of it." The crowd erupted in applause. For the first time, I felt it, not fear, not pain, but power. Real power. The kind that comes from survival. The kind no one can steal from you. That evening, after the press left, I sat with Sam under the magnolia tree in the hospital garden. The same tree I used to sit under as a child, dreaming about love, about a future that never came. I leaned against his shoulder and whispered, "You gave me back more than my life. You gave me peace."
He didn't speak.
He just pulled me closer and kissed the top of my head. "I never want to lose you again," he said quietly. "Then don't," I whispered. "Stay with me. Marry me." He froze. Slowly, he turned to face me. "You're serious?" "I'm done waiting for the right time," I said. "I've already lived a lifetime full of regrets. I'm not wasting another moment." Sam didn't smile. He looked like he might cry. Then he nodded.
Yes.
"Yes, I'll marry you." We didn't need a grand wedding. We didn't need flowers flown in from Paris or 100 guests in diamonds. All we needed was each other. And a promise. A week later, under that same magnolia tree, we exchanged vows. My mother placed a small ring in my palm, a ring she had worn when she married my father. "This is for strength," she said, "not beauty." And it was perfect. Sam's vows were simple. "I promise to never let you go." "Not again." Mine were softer. "I promise to never forget how hard we fought to stand here today. And I'll never let go either." When we kissed, the world didn't erupt into cheers. But I didn't need the world. I had him. And I had myself. That was more than enough. The lenders didn't stop at humiliating Oliver. They came again and again, storming our company gates, demanding repayment with interest that grew more monstrous by the day. They threatened employees, smashed windows, even sent warning letters dipped in red ink meant to look like blood. My father remained calm throughout it all, though I could see the weight pressing on his shoulders. "Let them scream," he said to me one night over tea. "The louder they bark, the more desperate they are. Their anger is only the sound of a failed man's final gamble." Still, he quietly called in old favors, pulled strings, and one by one, the lenders found themselves audited, investigated, or suddenly having their own shady dealings exposed. Within weeks, the noise faded, the attacks stopped, and Oliver disappeared completely from public view. Rumor had it he was sold off to another gang to work off his debt, that he was seen limping in and out of illegal casinos, shoveling trash in the alleys behind pawnshops. I never bothered to confirm it. I didn't need to. His story no longer mattered. Mine did. After the wedding, Sam and I moved into a modest home in Iceland, a house near a frozen lake that sparkled under the northern lights. I still remember our first night there. He lit a fire in the hearth, cooked us dinner with one hand, and we ate cross-legged on the rug in front of the flames. There were no servants, no press, no gold-edged invitations, only us and the silence between snowflakes. "Do you miss it?" Sam asked softly that night, his hand resting on my knee. "The noise, the status, all the eyes on you." I looked at him, my heart full. I used to think being seen was the same as being loved. But now I know love isn't loud. It's steady. And you've always been steady. 6 months passed, then a year. Sam healed slowly but fully. His body regained strength, but more than that, his spirit opened like a flower beneath calm sunlight. He smiled more often. He laughed without guilt. And every time he touched me, it was with reverence, like I was something precious, not fragile, not breakable but worth protecting. I spent my days painting, reading, learning to bake. Sometimes I failed, and we'd laugh over burnt scones and flour-covered floors. At night, we walked hand in hand under the aurora borealis, our shadows long against the snow. One evening, I found him staring at me across the dinner table, silent. "What is it?" I asked. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny box. "This is another ring," he said, flushing. "I know we're already married, but I didn't get to propose the way I wanted, the way you deserve." I opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band, engraved with our initials and the date of the press conference where I had stood up for both of us. "Sam," I whispered, tears burning behind my eyes. "Will you marry me again?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. I nodded, speechless, and threw my arms around him. We renewed our vows that night in front of the lake. Just the two of us and the stars. 2 years later, I opened a small art studio in town, teaching painting and sculpture to children and teens. Many of them came from rough homes, some barely spoke, but they all learned to create.
To heal.
Sam helped build the space himself, hammering wood in the freezing cold with bare fingers. We named it Second Light. One morning, a little girl with scars on her wrists asked me, "Miss Celine, why do you never get angry?" I smiled gently and said, "Because I've already survived the worst. Everything after is a blessing." We didn't live extravagantly, but we lived fully. Every Sunday, Sam and I would visit the cliff overlooking the sea, bringing a thermos of hot tea and a blanket. We'd sit and watch the waves, sometimes in silence, sometimes humming old love songs. And slowly, the past stopped hurting. I stopped waking up gasping from dreams of locked rooms and cold betrayal. I stopped flinching when I heard footsteps behind me. And I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was what fate had planned all along.
But one day, a letter arrived.
No return address.
No ang duriting irakumisya.
Inside, only one sentence. He's back. My heart clenched. I stared at the words, rereading them a dozen times, until Sam walked in and gently took the paper from me. "It doesn't matter," he said. "We're far away. He can't reach us." But the next week, a man showed up outside my studio. Tall, thin, face obscured by a hood.
He didn't speak.
He just left a small music box on the windowsill and vanished. I knew what it meant. The same music box Oliver had once gifted me when we were children. That night, I sat by the fire, holding the box in my lap.
Sam crouched beside me.
"If you want to go back," he said quietly, "to finish it, then I'll be with you. But if you want to burn it all down, I'll hand you the match." I looked into his eyes, my heart steady. "We don't need to run. We've already won. But I do want one thing. Anything. Let's go back. Just for one day. And show them what peace looks like." The next month, we flew to the city. We visited my parents, attended a charity event, and smiled for the cameras. The whispers were deafening. "Is that Sam? That's her husband? She really married the younger brother?" But we smiled. We danced. And we donated $5 million to a shelter for survivors. I stood at the podium and said, "This is what healing looks like. This is what love becomes when it's built from truth." Oliver never showed his face. But I knew he was watching. Somewhere. And I wanted him to see not my anger, not my vengeance, but my peace. My joy. My family. My second life. And that was the perfect revenge that I and the years that followed. Peace settled into our lives like snow falling on untouched ground, quiet, sure, and transformative. Sam's company grew, not from inherited power or family reputation, but from persistence, humility, and the kind of leadership that earns loyalty rather than demanding it. The same man who once stood in his brother's shadow now sat at the head of the table, respected not because of his name, but because of his heart. Our home, though never grand in the way my old life once envisioned, became a sanctuary. There was no echo of Emma's poison or Oliver's cruelty, just warm lamplight, late-night conversations over tea, laughter that came easily, and love that required no performance. We never lived for public approval, never chased status, but we built a reputation all the same. People began to see Sam as a man of quiet integrity. They saw me not as the mysterious daughter of the Nestor family, but as a woman who had reclaimed her life. I painted again, sometimes abstract storms of color, sometimes simple portraits of Sam reading by the window, his eyes gentle, his mouth curved in a faint smile. I didn't hang them anywhere public. They were just for me.
For us.
For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I truly understood what it meant to live. And then, one golden morning in spring, I placed Sam's hand over my stomach and whispered, "It's time." At first, he didn't understand. He looked at me, blinking. Then realization dawned, and his eyes filled with tears so suddenly, he didn't even try to hide them. He fell to his knees, resting his forehead against my belly, his hands trembling. "Thank you," he whispered again and again. "Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for giving me a family." Through the months that followed, he never missed a single appointment. He read every book, cooked every meal, built the crib himself even when I told him we could just order one. At night, he talked to the baby like they were already friends, telling stories, singing softly, promising to protect them with every breath. And when the time came, he was right there, holding my hand, not once flinching, not once faltering. Our son was born under a sky streaked with sunrise. He cried loudly, powerfully, as if announcing to the world that a new chapter had begun. We named him Lucian after the light. Sam held him with awe, tears streaming down his face. And I knew, watching the two of them, that no matter what had come before, no matter the blood, the betrayal, the shadows of the past, this was our new beginning. Lucian grew fast. He had Sam's calm eyes and my stubborn mouth. As he learned to walk, he'd waddle straight into Sam's arms, giggling uncontrollably. He loved colors bright, messy, joyful. He painted beside me, his fingers smudged with every shade imaginable. Sometimes he asked about our past, sensing the stories behind our silences. We told him just enough lessons, not wounds. Some people don't know how to love, I would say. But we learned. We built something better. Years passed, and one afternoon, as I stood on the porch watching Sam and Lucian fly a kite across the open field behind our home, the wind lifting the fabric higher and higher into the sky, I felt the final piece of something inside me settle. Not because I had forgotten everything we'd endured, but because I had survived it. I had rewritten it. I had taken every broken shard of my past and laid it carefully, beautifully, into a mosaic that glittered with meaning. Sam turned toward me, waving. Lucian trailed behind him, laughing, his little arms raised in triumph as the kite soared above them. And I thought of Oliver, of Emma, of the version of myself who once believed that love meant pain, that silence was strength, that being chosen meant being saved.
She was gone.
In her place stood a woman who had chosen herself, who had walked through fire and come out illuminated. And this was her reward, not vengeance, not victory but peace, not power but family, not a perfect life but a real one. That night, as Lucian fell asleep between us, one hand clinging to my shirt, Sam whispered, "If we had another life after this, would you find me again?" I looked at him, brushing a lock of hair from his brow. "In every life, Sam. It will always be you." He smiled, pressing his forehead to mine. "Then I'll wait for you. As many lives as it takes." And we lay there, beneath a ceiling of stars, wrapped in warmth, in forgiveness, in love. No more debts. No more ghosts. Just us. A family born not from blood, but from courage. And that was the end of the story. Not a fairy tale. Something better. Something true. Thank you for staying with Universe of Love and Anime until the very end of this story. It's been a journey filled with tears, love, betrayal, and forgiveness, but above all, it's been a story of growth and healing. If this tale touched your heart, made you feel something, or simply reminded you that true love still exists in this world, then that means everything to us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like. Subscribe to our channel so you won't miss more heartfelt stories like this one, and share it with someone who might need a little warmth and hope today. We'll see you again soon, right here where love always finds its voice, in the gentlest way possible.